Ah, home sweet home. Welcome back to the Vault of Glass, revivified and updated for Destiny 2. While there are some small and big changes compared to the Destiny 1 variant, we'll only be discussing how the Destiny 2 version of Vault works. In another video, we'll go over the differences between the two, and I'll give my take on how I felt about the raid. This guide will also assume you know nothing about Vault of Glass. For those of you who are already familiar with Vault, Templar should not be that much of an issue for you. For those of you that are unfamiliar, well, let's get in the front door. We'll talk about team and weapon composition in a little bit, as for the first few sections, it more or less doesn't really matter what you bring. While a lot of my initial advice is going to be based on the contest version of the raid, contest mode is over, and things will be a lot easier, meaning you'll have a lot more freedom in your composition. To breach the Vault of Glass, you'll need to split your team into 3 groups of 2. Around the entrance are 3 plates that must remain active for a couple of minutes. Once guarded for long enough, the vault door will open and you will be able to enter. Be sure to grab your loot before heading in, as the very first chest when you come into the vault counts as a hidden chest for the Triumph. It's not very hidden, I know, but it still counts. The other chests can be found in another video that is already uploaded. The Templar Encounter is split into 3 parts: Confluxes, Oracles, and then finally the Templar. Team composition here can be pretty loose, as you're not fighting Templar, but rather clearing waves of goblins and Vex. Stasis shined pretty well here during the contest mode, although I'm assuming that subclass selection won't really matter now that it's over, but Stasis will still be a great pick since you're not fighting a boss. Weapons also do not matter too much here, since you're just doing a lot of ad clear. Salvager's Salvo was putting in some good work, but as long as you have a couple of people with overload rounds ready, simply put on your best weapons, whatever they might be, and you'll be just fine. I would definitely skew more towards close range for now. When it comes to mods, even the most basic Warmind Cell mod, Global Reach, will destroy almost anything in the room, and I highly suggest it. Before you start, assign people to pair up on the left, middle, and right sides of the arena, or you can just do left and right. In the Confluxes encounter, you'll need to defend first 1, then 2, then 3 Confluxes from enemy Vex. Vex will try to sacrifice themselves, and you just need to stop them from getting to the Confluxes. During the first wave, you'll have a sacrificial wyvern spawn in the pit in the center of the room. If this wyvern sacrifices itself at the Conflux, it's an automatic wipe, so be sure to kill it as soon as possible. On the second wave, 2 wyverns will spawn on the sides, and on the final wave, wyverns will continue to spawn during the encounter. These should all be killed as fast as possible. The only other things to watch out for are Fanatics and Templar itself. Templar isn't really that much of a threat, especially if you're not within line of sight, but can occasionally splash you to death, so just be careful. Fanatics are Vex that will leave a pool of Vex goo on the ground when killed. If you never stand in this, then you'll never need to worry about this next mechanic, but hypothetically, let's say you stand in it on accident. What happens? Templar during the fight will be spamming Ritual of Negation. If you do not have Mark of Negation on you, which only comes from standing in those Vex pools, this does absolutely nothing. If you have Mark of Negation on you when this is cast, you die. In order to get rid of this debuff, you need to jump into the bottom middle of the arena in the pit where the wyvern spawns. There should be a glowing zone here that will cleanse your debuff. However, it's best to use this as a group if multiple people get debuffed, as the zone will vanish after someone jumps in. Simply jump in all at the same time to purge the debuff. Again, ideally, you will never need to use this at all during the fight. In between waves, Templar will summon his legions, which means that way more enemies will be spawning in, including Overload Minotaurs. However, even on contest mode, you could burst them down without too much issue. Watch for extra Fanatics and Harpies. Your team should collapse to the middle and pop a couple of supers for safety if you need them. Overall, this encounter should not be very taxing on your team whatsoever. The second encounter is the Oracle encounter. During this fight, you'll have waves of 3, 4, 5, 6, and finally 7 oracles spawn in, which need to be killed in the order that they were spawned or pinged in. There are 7 potential oracle spawn locations. Each location also has its own note, so eventually you can memorize the locations of the oracles solely based on the sound that they make. I'm going to use my old D1 callouts here, but feel free to name them whatever you want. Here we have middle, left stairs, low left, hidden left, right stairs, upper right, and hidden right. You can also just do L1 for the stairs, L2 for the side, and L3 for the hidden location, and R1 for the stairs, R2 for the upper location, and R3 for the hidden location, leaving middle as the final spawn. Team composition here can still stay mainly the same, with Stasis completely wrecking during contest mode. However, for weaponry, you definitely want to have at least one ranged option, as Hobgoblins will be spawning on the outer platforms of the arena during the entire fight, sometimes in pairs. Something like Dead Man's Tale, Eriana's Vow, or any sort of legendary sniper will work just fine. Keep the same assignments from the first encounter when it comes to splitting up your team. When the wave of oracles pings, all players should be on the lookout for where they are pinging and calling out what number in the order that they are in. Then, after that second ping, all of the oracles that were just pinged will all spawn at the same time. You must destroy them in the order that they pinged. That is all there is to it. After successfully destroying the oracles in the correct order, you'll do it for the next wave, which will have 4, then 5, then 6, then finally all 7. These oracles are pretty weak, with something like Xeno one-shotting them, or Eriana's Aura Shotgun two-shotting them, potentially even one-shotting them on normal mode. However, taking too long will mark all players for negation, which means you all need to group up and jump into that zone from the previous encounter together to cleanse. Shooting the wrong oracle will also mark players. You will also need to deal with a massive amount of enemies spawning in at the exact same time as the oracles ping from every direction and doorway. So it'll be best to try to coordinate quickly who will be getting what oracles, so that the remaining players can focus solely on clearing ads. While oracle pattern memorization will be important, not having to dodge out of the way of 17 goblins and hobgoblins will also help very much. Keep in mind that one person can shoot multiple oracles, and multiple people can shoot the same oracle if need be. Sometimes it might be easy for one player to take responsibility for 2, 3, or even 4 oracles if they're within close proximity, or if they've memorized the order. Again, you will also have hobgoblins spawning during the entire fight on the outer platforms. While I don't think it's necessary to assign one person to hobgoblin duty, if you find yourself struggling with them, it wouldn't be a bad idea to assign one person to killing hobgoblins and only killing hobgoblins. Here's an example of us handling the oracles during the contest version.
I got 1.
3.
I got 4.
I got last one, 7, I assume.
I have 2, yeah. What you do?
I got 1 and 4. I got 1 and 4.
I got 5.
6.
Yeah, I got 7.
There is 7.
Alright, you ready?
1.
Got 2.
Working on 3. 3 down.
4 down.
5 down.
6 down.
7 down.
A lot of ads
Yeah,
in
so
mid.
many
Nice
A lot
job.
of ads in mid.
You kill him.
I hit him, I hit him.
After the oracles, you will reach the Templar, the actual boss fight. Here's where you might need to get a little more specific when it comes to your composition. This fight can be very short, especially when one-cycling the boss, a one-cycle meaning killing Templar before a second wave of oracles. Team composition can have a Well of Radiance, as Templar will not be able to kill you through the Well's healing, at least not by itself. Feel free to also throw in a Ward of Dawn if you want for extra safety, or for a splash more damage. Otherwise, burst damage supers are really going to shine here. Thundercrash with Curus, Nova Bomb, Celestial Nighthawk, or Chaos Reach. In terms of weapon loadouts, I think a lot of things will inevitably work, but my team stuck with what works well for Taniks, and that's double slug shotgun with Anarchy and a Lunafaction Well and Divinity. Templar is just close enough that with a Lunafaction Well, you can hit him from the top right section of the arena while Templar is in the middle of the room. You could also go on some ledges in front of Templar now that contest is over. The Divinity is there for when Templar inevitably turns around so that you can still crit, although you might not need it depending on your positioning and your speed. Season 14's Breach and Clear mod is going to be the clear winner here, but after it's gone, a Tether or Divinity will be just fine. I'm sure a wide variety of weapon combos will work, and potentially some things that work better than double slugs. Check the description for any updates. For group assignments, you will have a bunch of individual roles. The Relic Holder is the main one, but also Teleport Blocker or Blockers if you want to have a backup. You can also assign one person to be a Detainment Breaker, although everyone should try to help with that. If you have someone on Divinity, have them use a machine gun and be the Detainment Breaker, since they won't really be doing a lot of damage to Templar anyway, and a machine gun breaks detainment very quickly. Finally, if you want to be extra careful, have someone be a lookout for Fanatics, occasionally checking for and killing them before they get close to your team. In the middle of the pit will spawn a Relic Shield. This player will be responsible for breaking Templar's shield that protects it from damage, using the Relic's super in order to break it. Should the Relic ever be placed on the ground for too long, your team will wipe. The Relic is also very good at killing adds with its bash and ground slam attacks, and should be used to clear adds whenever possible. The Relic's super is a blast attack that launches from the shield itself. The Relic also has a guard function which creates a barrier that protects those inside. You need to hold this guard up, it is not a toggle, and it has a pretty short duration. Templar has two main mechanics, Detainment and Teleports. When Templar's shield breaks from the Relic super, two things happen. One person is randomly detained in a bubble that must be shot by other players, and a teleport indicator will appear in one of 4 spots around the arena, with the 5th spot being where Templar is at the start. Templar is not able to teleport to the location where it currently is. These spots otherwise are front left, front right, back left, and back right. If the Templar teleports, its shield will come back and you'll need to break it again. If the teleport is blocked, Templar will stay in its current position and will try to teleport somewhere else, but its shield will stay disabled. Blocking teleports is completely optional, but is very encouraged to give you more time to deal damage without interruption. The detained player needs to be freed in 15 seconds or they will die, so be sure to shoot them out of the bubble, especially if they're responsible for teleport blocking, as detained players cannot shoot their own weapons or bash with the Relic. Players will continue to be detained during the fight as you block teleports. Templar's next teleport location will be highlighted with a big red circle that will turn white when stood in. You do not need to stand in the circle the entire time, you just need to be in it during the moment when Templar is about to teleport. Although, given that Templar doesn't nuke the ever-loving crap out of you anymore when blocking a teleport, there is little reason to not just hop in somewhat quickly. However, every time you block a Templar teleport, more adds, specifically Minotaurs, will be spawning in. Therefore, you should only block as much as you're able to handle the waves of Minotaurs spawning in. Good groups will be able to kill the Templar so quickly that they can simply ignore these new adds spawning in. This is where those burst supers will come into play. However, during the entire fight, Oracles will also be spawning in groups of 3, including right at the start. They work the exact same way that they did in the previous encounter. They must be killed in order. They will continue to spawn in during the fight every so often, regardless of Templar's teleport status. If not acknowledged at all or handled incorrectly, they will cause enough deaths to wipe a group. Keep in mind that Fanatics will also continue to spawn and drop their pools upon death. These should be avoided at all times. So what's the plan here? The Relic player will grab the Relic to start the fight and should start getting their super as fast as possible while killing Harpies. Meanwhile, everyone else should be ready to kill Oracles as they'll spawn very quickly into the fight. Ideally, the team will be done with Oracles by the time the Relic holder has their super. Then, players should group up wherever they plan on dealing damage, and the Relic should launch their super. Damage will begin with the assigned teleport blocker going to where Templar will teleport to, and with players breaking detained players out of their bubble. You can have the Relic holder also be the teleport blocker, just be sure to free them if they get detained. There is nothing wrong at all with having multiple teleport blockers, or to have someone babysit the detainment bubble if it becomes that much of a problem. Again, when it comes to blocking teleports, you should only block as many as your team is able to handle. Every block means more Minotaurs, and Minotaurs can really bring the pain. There is nothing wrong with only doing 1 or 2 teleport blocks, clearing Minotaurs, and starting over again. The biggest thing here that will stop teams from success is honestly the next Oracle wave in the fight. The first wave happens when nothing is going on, so it's pretty easy, but the next wave might be while you're damaging Templar. Generally speaking, as soon as you hear the next Oracle wave spawning in, everyone should start looking for them to be ready to clear them if you're still dealing damage. It's also not a bad idea to simply stop damage if you haven't gotten Oracles for a little bit, as they're going to spawn pretty soon. This will also be a great time for any roaming supers to activate to clear as many Minotaurs as possible. You'll repeat this process, breaking Templar shield, blocking teleports if you want, and shooting Templar until it goes down. Once you have bested the Templar, it's on to the Gorgon Maze and Atheon. We'll talk about all of that in the next guide. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.